Hi guys, welcome to the Big Spring Clean. This is our last video in the series, and today we're going to be talking about organizing your collection museum style. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is I'm just going to be using some small ornaments that I have to demonstrate. So let me grab my ornament. Okay, I've got a little fairy collection going. Now, the first thing I'd say about this is that she's fragile. She's got fragile wings, she's got flowers in there, and she's also very dusty, so she needs cleaning. So my first piece of advice when it comes to cleaning our objects in our collection, precious ornaments, is I'd use a paintbrush. And I'd just gently go round and clean the dust. Okay, and so with the paintbrush, I can get, so she's wearing a skirt, I can do all the different details in her skirt and her wings without any damage. And at the same time, if you use a paintbrush, you can get to places where you wouldn't have got to if you had used a dust cloth. So I think that's quite a nice little touch. So if you get yourself a paintbrush, it doesn't have to be as big as this. I mean, I've actually got loads of paintbrushes, so but I quite like this one. All right, so we've got that. And then what I need to think about with my collection, so maybe not so much with this ornament, but certainly my paperworks, some of my artworks, and definitely my book collection. I have to be very conscious of light source and how that's affecting the collection. So one of my next tips for looking after your collection museum style, after very delicately and lightly dusting, is that I think about what the light exposure is. So if the light is coming in on your items, especially in my case, for example, I have a very bright room in the daytime. So it's really important to think about where they're positioned. It might be a case that if the light doesn't hit on one side of the room, that's where you should house your collection. Okay, the next tip. So I've actually got 4 today. So museum style, tip 3. If, for example, you're cataloguing books, or if, for example, you have items like this, and there's a chance that you might want to sell them or loan them, then it might be a good idea to make a reference to them. So what I'd do is I'd set up a database, and whenever I bought a new item, I would put that item into the database. Any of the old items, I'd go back and catalogue. Now, this is a really big process, so you need to think about whether this is going to be useful for you. So for me, I've no intentions of moving this collection of fairies outside of the room. So I don't need to give them a number or a code and put it in my system. But with my book collection, it's such a vast collection, and there is a chance that I will want to, let books go as time goes on. I might then want to put a reference in my spreadsheet, in my database of the ISBN, or very simply 1, 2, 3, 4. But the thing with that is you then have to number the books. So it might just be worth, putting in the title and the author, and if there's any other relevant details, so you can at least search what you own. So I have found duplicates in my book collection before, and that's because it's so vast. So yeah, but it's a massive job. So you really do need to think about, do I need to catalogue this? Another way that you can maintain your collection is that you can organize it in theme. So you could say everything to do with fairies, I'm going to put in this area, or everything to do with sculpture, everything to do with fragile objects. So if I was, for example, a professional organizer with a client who, for example, was moving house, I would want to group items like this, and then I would wrap them museum style. Okay, so my final point is museum style. What do I mean? Well, when we go to wrapping objects to move them around, we need to be conscious that we don't want to damage them. We want to limit the motion to, if they were, for example, traveling in a vehicle, and naturally the vehicle is going to go up and down. So we'd want to limit the chances of pressure being put onto fragile objects. So in the case of this object, I would put it in an appropriate box, and then I'd pack in the box. So I'd pack tissue around it and things like that. I'd also label it as a fragile item, so it wouldn't be something that was packed at the bottom. It wouldn't be something that, all the heavy items, the home gym equipment gets balanced on. I think the next thing I'd do, say, for example, if I had a painting or a book, I'm not talking about a paperback book now, I'm talking about, a collector's book. So let's assume that this is a painting. This is fragile, I don't want to break this. It's a new media artwork, it's a film artwork. So what I would do is I would first put a layer of soft wrap around it. So it might be a tissue or something that agrees with this surface, and so that it won't get scratched. After that, I'd put it in its own box. So it'd have its own box. I'd want a foam lining around it. If I didn't, to limit movement, especially if we're talking artworks, but even, equipment, depending on, how it's affected by travel, because some equipment, movement and vibrations isn't great for it either. I found that with like stereo system, where you have like the big speakers and the stereo, they don't actually travel that well sometimes. I think it's the lens inside that reads, whatever it is that you've put into the machine, like into the stereo. It can get knocked out of place and it can get damaged from movement. So there's all sorts of things to think about. If this is a painting, for example, so I'd have my soft layer, I'd have my tissue layer on it. I'd have some kind of protection on, to the edges. If I didn't have that and I just wanted to do a card wrap, I'd do a nice thick card wrap, but then I'd put something on the outer edges. So what we call it in the art world is or packing, in the packing world is tulip edges. So it's kind of like this foamy material that's on the edges, and then you seal them on. So if there's any movement, it's not a problem. And I think it's really important to think about these things as well if you're putting items into storage. So as long as they're packed appropriately, they should be fine. They should store well. You might have to think about temperatures. You might have to think about condensation. Is it for a lot of collections, so for example the book collection, the art collection, we don't want to put them in a place where there's high moisture. So these are all things to think about, and I think when you're cleaning through your collection, when you're decluttering, when you're letting items go, you're actually, from doing that rotation, from moving things around, you can also identify if there is any moisture near your collection, if anything's changed within the environment. With books, it's always good to see if there's any marking on the books, any little dots on the books, for where the books might have been attacked by parasites. So it's really important, actually, if you're a collector, to keep on top of this, or to have someone who maintains it for you, so that if there was any issue, that you would catch it really fast. So that's really all I have to say on museum style maintenance for your collection. Well, I have lots of things to say, but I think for a short video that's enough. But if you are interested in this area, if you're a collector yourself, if you want to know more about looking after your collection, managing it, cataloguing it, organising it in any form, please do drop me a line. And also keep an eye out for some of our workshops, because I do talk about these things quite a lot. So I will talk about sentimental items and collections. So I hope you can join me. I think one of the best ways to keep up to date is to actually subscribe to our blog, or to drop your details to via our website. And when we reach it, what we'll do is we'll make sure that you receive our quarterly letter, which tells you everything that's coming up. So we release a letter every season. We're not here, we're not constantly in your inbox unless you've chosen to have certain updates, but every season. So we've got our spring schedule at the moment. And so if you'd like to know, please do either drop me a line, drop us a line via the website, or get in touch any way you like, whatever works for you. And happy spring cleaning. I hope that some of these tips over the week has helped you to find a bit of motivation to go that extra mile for the big spring clean. And now I'm going to go and do a big spring clean for myself. So yeah, please enjoy the videos, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.